Okay, looks like we're live. So today is Tuesday. It's almost 1 o'clock, and it is time for Timeout Tuesday. It is episode 81 of Timeout Tuesday, and I titled today's video Trials and Tribulations, Let It Happen. So, if you think back to the stories that you commonly tell people, very often they're not necessarily stories of your successes, because often that can come across as being braggy, but very often we're telling funny stories, things that we've done that might have been goofy, or mistakes that we've made, or things that we might have failed at. The story about, leaving your car in drive and having it almost drive off a cliff, or walking through a screen door, or something else. These are all things that we did that were goofy. They're fun to tell the stories about. And obviously, we also learn lessons from them, and they're lessons that we can share. Sorry about all the shaking. I'm moving my table. These are lessons that we can then pass on and teach other people. Don't walk through a screen door, or, maybe more importantly, make sure your car is in drive before getting out of it. As a side story, I was once on a train on my way home from the city, and I looked out the window, and I saw a police car driving alongside the train very slowly, and when I looked more carefully, about 15 feet behind it was a police officer running after the car. Apparently, I guess he'd gotten out of it on a slight incline, left the car in drive, turned around to do what he was doing, and the next thing you know, his car was 20 feet away from him. And, I got to watch for about 10 or 15 seconds until the train passed, him trying to chase down his car. I'm sure that was a lesson that he learned, and I hope that nothing actually bad happened as a result of that. I never read anything about it. But again, trial and tribulation, lesson learned. At the karate school, it's one of our core teaching methods is learning through trial and tribulation. Our goal is not to spoon feed kids every single thing that they need to know. We want them to start learning very quickly how to look around them, see what other people are doing, see if it's necessary for them to line up a certain way, how to line up a certain way. If they're supposed to wait for their turn on a dot on the floor, then we want them to learn how to get on that dot on the floor. And sometimes, especially with new students, we can find that student really not understanding what to do, especially with real young students, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. And we could certainly just, grab their hand, walk them over to the dot, and say, stand on this. Well, the problem is that the next time that we have a similar skill or game that we're doing with the kids, and we say, get on a dot, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to stand there, and they're not going to know what to do until someone walks them over there. So really all we're doing is giving them a fish rather than teaching them to fish. And that's just not what we do. Our goal with our students is to allow them to learn lessons from their failure. We believe that by making mistakes and then learning how to correct them, or making mistakes and learning what the rule is, we actually breed success over the long haul. And perhaps even more importantly, we're teaching them how to solve problems. Because if the only thing that they're going to get out of karate is how to punch and kick, then we're not really doing our job. Because with self-defense training, and especially traditional karate that we teach, our goal is to never fight. We want them to come up with other ways of solving their problems. But if the only two things that they have to solve problems with are punching and kicking or running to mommy, then we're not really doing our job here. Because what we want them to do is to learn how to figure out what's going on around them, learn from other things that they've done in class, and try to solve that problem in the absence of a parent and in the absence of getting physical through punching and kicking. It's very important to us. And in fact, many times the classes that we do, and in fact for the last couple of weeks we've been doing a lot of this, is puzzle solving, I guess would be the best way to describe it. There's a particular concept that I'm trying to get across to some of our younger students. It's a pretty complicated concept, and I can certainly just sit there and lecture them on it, but kids are going to get bored. They're not going to find that fun at all. There's no challenge in getting lectured at, and I don't really want that to be the way that we teach. I think that there's a better way, and there's a conclusion that I do want them to reach, but I think I can do that through more of a Socratic method by giving them puzzles to solve. And we give them some pretty complicated, I'm talking a little bit more about our middle-age kids, 6 to 12. We give them these challenges that have a goal. We give them what we generally want them to do, but we definitely don't tell them how to do it. If they're really struggling, we might give them some hints along the way, but we design these drills so that they are complicated, so that they do have to struggle with trying to work through it. And by doing so, they wind up emerging with skills, problem-solving skills. And we think that that's just possibly one of the most, perhaps the single most valuable thing that we provide our children. And the feedback that I get from parents on the way we teach is that, especially those that have been with us for a while and they see the changes that their children have gone through, they describe it as a no-nonsense or a no BS approach. We don't spoon-feed them through everything. It's not playtime. Our goal is to have super fun classes because we know that kids will only do karate and only do really anything if there's a fun element attached to it. And we want that. We believe that learning karate and martial arts is fun, so we certainly want to convey that to our students. But we definitely do it in a structured environment, and a structured environment has rules that need to be followed. And we don't want to lecture them into all of these rules. Sometimes we just want them to look around and figure out what those rules are. And it's definitely something that we consider very important. And, we always encourage new parents to ask a lot of questions about why we're doing stuff, why are you engaging the children in that manner versus just, walking them over and spoon feeding them the next thing? Or why do we sometimes let them have wait time between the direction that we're giving them and their execution? We don't just immediately tell them to go do something. If they don't do it, go help them. Sometimes we let them wait a few seconds or even a minute or two because we know that deep down they can figure these things out, but they've actually got to try. And the easiest thing for them to do is just surrender and say, I don't know. In fact, very often when we have classes where the students are being directed to do some self-directed practice on the floor, if a student is just standing perfectly still, we might go over to them and say, hey, how come you're doing absolutely nothing? And their response might be, I forgot how to do exercise number 1. And if we know that they know how to do that they might have already passed the test and earned a belt that required them to demonstrate that, we know that they may not have completely forgotten it, but rather maybe portions of it slipped their mind, and they're testing us to some extent to see if we'll just spoon feed it to them again. And generally our instructor response on that's going to be, well, I'll tell you what, why don't you start doing as much of it as you can remember, and then once we see you trying to kind of struggle your way through it a little bit, we'll come over and we'll try to fill in the gaps for you. And then we walk away and we keep an eye on them. And, you'll watch for about 15 or 20 more seconds. They might do nothing, and then they start moving slightly. And then before you know it, maybe they've got about 75% of the thing that 3 minutes ago they totally forgot. And then we double back with them and we'll help fill in the gaps for them because, of course, we're there to instruct and guide them, and we don't want them to waste their time. But we really want them to make sure that they're conscious of the fact that there's a difference between forgetting something and just not wanting to do it. And we want them to go through those trials and tribulations and experience some of that short-term failure so that they can have long-term successes. So that's it for Time Out Tuesday today. It's about 1,000,000 degrees in the shade right now, so I'm going to close up my laptop, maybe jump in the pool for about a half hour, an hour, and start planning out the rest of the day today. So I hope everyone's having a fantastic summer. This is the closing of episode 81 of Time Out Tuesday. So I hope everyone has a great day. Peace.